Cheesies.
Dun, 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 dun. What's up, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls? Hello. It is Friday night, 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Your place for the Unfiltered experience with myself, Christopher Rausch, and
Scott Goyette with
Scott
a
Goyette.
broken voice.
With the broken voice, sounding all sexy and raspy.
Oh, yeah.
You guys are at your place where we have unfiltered conversations designed to move you forward, increase your confidence level, your courage to go out there and crush life and have a kick-ass time doing it. What's going on, Mr. Scott Goyette? How are you doing this evening?
Good, man. Just trying to be sexy, you know. I'm just doing my best, trying to do this new voice thing. I'm not even sick. I'm just trying to do a thing.
Yeah, you're just doing a thing.
Do you
Well, I like it.
thing?
You got the hair going on.
Yeah,
You got the style going on. You're like, hey, what's up?
Hey, what's up, Christopher Rausch? Where you at today?
I will take care of you right now.
Oh yeah.
Woo.
Oh yeah.
Reminds me of that comedian. Shit, I'm friends with him on Facebook. Jesus Christ. The Love Master. Craig Shoemaker. Yeah, Craig Shoemaker.
Okay.
There was a Love Master. He's like the whitest guy, and he goes into this black voice like Barry White, and he's like, I'm Love Master. I'll stir your drink from here, baby.
It's been a long time, baby girl. Long time.
Now I got Led Zeppelin. Now I got Led Zeppelin in my head.
Been a
long
time.
So, ladies and gentlemen, this is the black t-shirt episode of the Unfiltered Experience, and we
100.
appreciate you guys being here. And we're going to do a little commercial right here because our friends, our family, our dear sister from another mister, Serena Buffalino, is probably watching this episode. We just want to let her know that we support the organization. Of course, I'm on the board of directors for it. Help Heal Humanity. Go to www.helphealhumanity.org. If you dig this show, if you dig what Scott and I say and do every single week, we bring the value to you. We bring the content to you. Whatever it is that you could possibly do with your wallet or your volunteer time, we would appreciate it. Even just sharing the organization out on your social media would really appreciate for us. Let us know when you do that so we can say thank you to you guys, because helphealhumanity.org is a magnificent organization that is doing things all over the world. We built schools in Haiti. We're just got through doing a school program here in the United States. We got things coming up in Canada, food drives for the homeless in Hamilton, Ontario, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So Scott and I support this organization. We appreciate it if you would support it as well. And again, whatever it is that you do, if you could donate $10, donate $10, because if 100 people donate $10, you know what that means. So we appreciate you guys doing that. It's kind of like your fee for watching this show and getting the value out of it that you probably have gotten so far. I think right now, Scott, we are on show number 83. 83 shows we've done just of the Unfiltered Experience, and we did Friday Night Live for I think probably about 60 or 70 shows. I can't remember exactly how much. So we've been rocking and rolling your lives. So rock and roll the people over there at Help Heal Humanity. We appreciate it. And tonight we don't have a guest, and tonight we're talking about something that everybody struggles with: letting go of control. Letting go of control. So I'm going to ask you the first question, Mr. Scott. What does control mean to you? Why do people need to be in control?
It's a good question. And there's a couple of words that I've always had issue with. And two of them are the words pride and the word control. And I think that they lead to a demise of, to run off what we just talked about, humanity. How do we help humanity, help heal humanity? I would say, and we don't have to go to down the road of pride, but when you release control and you release pride of things that aren't earned, just, the way I look, the way I am, something that's inherited, there's so many issues that come with that. So when I try to control and say, I want to, make a certain amount of money, I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to do this, and we say it has to be this way, and we have an attachment to that. Once you're attached to something, nothing good can come from that, because there's going to be an organic detachment that's out of our control. So control is an illusion. And, one of the things I like to do, Chris, is I like to go through different religions, different spiritualities, mindsets, and cherry pick them for the best messages, and then organize my thoughts and live a better life with those messages. And one of my favorite aspects of Buddhism is, without question, just non-attachment. So for me, I think if anybody's listening to this, if we have an opportunity in everything we do all day, every day, to say, I am an observer in this space, not attached to anything. And I've tried to take it to a point of even, and I know this will blow your mind too, because it blows my mind in saying it, of even detaching from those I love. So imagine saying, don't be attached to Jackson, don't be attached to Barb, don't be attached to Kim or Kayla. It almost sounds batshit crazy. But when we observe and we love unconditionally without an actual attachment to that person, which is really our impact, like it's me on her or me on them, when I just start to say, I'm observing and loving and not attached, the universe does things for you that are going to make this a much better world. So hopefully that makes sense. And
Oh,
I'm losing my
absolutely.
voice more. What do you think, Chris? I'm trying my best here.
Yeah, no, I see. Hear what you're saying. What you're talking about there is expectations. Like I have if I release my expectation about certain outcomes, then I won't feel disappointed. I won't feel frustrated. And I think a lot of what the control aspect comes up for me. I think about my mom. My mom always had to be in control, and her way of being in control was raising her voice and being mad and angry, so that she had center stage, she had the floor, and whatever she wanted, she got by raising her voice and being pissed off. I think about the need for control is like what you said, a little bit from pride. But from that egoic state, like I won't be complete unless I have this expectation fulfilled. So I need to control the outcomes. And I've shared here on the show that previously, before meeting you and meeting, Sally and everybody else, I needed to control situations for predictability, for certainty, for safety, for comfort. And in doing that and reading the Michael Singer books, the Untethered Soul and the Surrender Experiment, those two books really, like you said, being the observer, he talks about that. He goes, normally your thoughts are like, you think your thoughts are in your brain and you think you're your thoughts. He goes, but what happens if you just kind of stick your head back and you go, wow, that's really interesting. Do I really need to be tied to that? And for me, it hasn't been perfect, but being able to do that in certain situations where I feel like I need to control our outcome, or I feel like I need that certainty or that validation, I sit there and I think that thought pops up and I'm like, wow, that's an interesting thought. Do I need to be tied to it? So I've been able, not perfectly, but I've been able to release control over those situations and go, what would happen if I knew that X, Y, and Z was going to happen 6 months from now or 6 weeks from now? How would I feel right now if I knew certainty was down the road and God, source, universe has always provided for me, all the different challenging situations in my life, it's always provided for me. I've always been successful in whatever it is I've done. I've gone through challenges. Yes, I go through challenges now, but if I had the perspective that life is happening for me and not to me, then how would I feel today? Because I see when people have that experience of control, that they're really living out of a state of fear. And that was one of the things I wanted to ask you is, has there been a time in your life, which I'm sure there has, where you had an expectation of control, you had an expectation of certainty, and then that didn't happen and it wound up teaching you a learning lesson?
We could do this all day long. I'm going to give the easy one. Sometimes I like to go to the deep one, but the easiest one is falling through that glass table when I'm 19 years old. I mean, talk about just a complete 180 flip turnaround. I'm in the years of my life that just everything is flowing. Like I am in total control of my destiny. If I work hard, I can play 2 sports in college. Everything's in flow. Life is easy in the sense that the gifts that I've been giving, I'm maxing out. And so I'm sitting there on July 19th, 1991, and it's just, everything's great. I'm training my butt off. I'm working like crazy. I'm only 19 years old. Everything's actually 1990 because I was 19 years old. And so everything is great. Like there's nothing wrong at all. And then out of nowhere, I go to see a friend. Long story short, I sit down at a table. It turns out it was glass. There's newspaper on top of that table. I sit down, it shatters, an 8-inch piece of glass goes up into my body. I bleed out right there. Doctors saved my life. End up, I was supposed to be dead. I'm dead on the table, lost more than half my blood. They saved my life. I'm back. Here I am. My first questions were, because like I thought I was in control of my destiny. You got plenty of girlfriends, you're playing basketball and football, everything's perfect. And now I'm like, is my stuff going to work? Can I potentially have babies? Can I play basketball? Can I play football? And they're telling me they're giving me these like fake hope stuff. Like, we're going to do our best. We think that you're going to be okay. We'll see how everything goes. And as far as basketball and football, they're just like, you're not going to be able to play competitive sports. Definitely not football. If you get hit in the stomach, we'll see about basketball in the future. 2 months later, I was playing college basketball. And a few years later, I was playing college football. So, I mean, here's the thing. It knocked me in the face. And I was like, my life is over. I'm totally out of control. And then I regained control in many ways. But it was just an illusion. It's a second chance. Hard work comes into play. I was able to play basketball and I'm like, look at me, I'm amazing. No, I put the time and I put the effort in, and the universe will support you in your efforts, but you are not the dictator. We create our reality, but there's still outside sources that will influence us because we're all co-creating our reality. And so a glass table incident could hit any of us right now. Someone could get cancer. Somebody could get hit by a car. Anything can happen. And what I can control is how I react to those situations. And so it's a very simple answer that's not easy. And when I go back to it, I'm like, damn, I don't want to do that again. But people ask me what was the most important day in my life. We've had this conversation on the show. Everyone thinks wedding, birth of your child. No, the day I fell through that glass table. Because it's easy to fall in love with the day I see my daughter for the first time, or I see my wife walk down the aisle next to me. But falling through a glass table, you've got to do some deep interpretation and awakening. And that sucked. And that's why it was my favorite day and made me release control.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. What you said right there is, the life will provide opportunities for us to readjust our perspectives. And that's what we do here on the show, is always kind of just looking at how we can readjust our perspectives to see that those situations are really there designed to provide us lessons. And we can choose to have the idea that, okay, what lesson am I supposed to learn out of this? You could have easily said, oh yeah, no, I'm going to go do this and I'm going to go do this. You chose to see the lesson in that, but at the same time, you chose not to listen necessarily to what they were saying. You sat there and you trusted yourself and you trusted your body to be able to move forward in a safe manner, to be able to continue doing what you wanted to do. But you got that lesson out of that. My lesson, I forgot to share this the other night. We were having this conversation a little bit, and I started thinking about like different situations where my expectation of control didn't work out that way. And like I was thinking about a singular situation, but then it just dawned on me while you were talking. In my life, I've always had this tendency to want to control for other people. Like I'll see somebody who's hurting and somebody's going through something, and I'll feel like, okay, I have the answers for this and I can control the situation. I can provide them the answers and they will get better. They take this advice, if they read these books, if they do these things, they will get better and change what's not working for them. And I have not been able to control that. When I thought about it, one of those situations was my mother. I was just talking to somebody the other day and they were talking about how their mother, committed suicide. And I was just like, wow. And I was just thinking back, and they were alcoholics and all this other stuff. And I was thinking back, like, man, I was always trying to control my mom. I was always trying to get her to quit smoking. I was always trying to get her to be better with her relationships and all these things. Then I had to surrender. And that's one of the things I want to talk about in the show tonight. I had to surrender that control. And I had to sit there and say, whose life is it to live? Is it my life to live her life? Is it my responsibility to live her life? Or is it her responsibility to live her life? And can I just be there for the journey? Can I actually release control? And actually, if that's what she so desires, if she desires that car crash, can I release control of that? And I ultimately had to do that. It took me many, many years. It took towards the end of her life where I just said, you know what? She's going to smoke. She's going to do these things. It's probably going to happen. I'll just be there for her. And if she ever decides to change, then I'll be that conduit for her to help her change. But ultimately, as we know, she passed away, and I helped her the last couple of weeks of her life. I had to hold the cigarette for her. I'm like, really, Mom? I had to fucking hold this goddamn thing while you're dying? And I literally had to hold the cigarette because she didn't have enough strength to hold the cigarette anymore. And once I relinquished that control, I found that my other relationships started improving. And that's what I want to talk about a little bit, is when we think we want to control something, what does that do to our relationships? I mean, do you have any experience with that, with maybe coaching clients or people in your life where you thought you wanted to control something and it ruined a relationship or tarnished a relationship?
So I'll use the direct analogy to coaching. And you and I have talked about this too. When I first got into coaching, and I bet anything with you too, because we've had the same conversation, you get into coaching because you want to control others. And control sounds like such a bad word. It's like, well, I don't want to control them. I just want to help them. I just want to see them succeed. AKA, I want to control them. You know what I mean? Like, why are you doing this? What's wrong with you? You could have it so much better. If you just take this, you'll be better. You want to control situations because we're projecting. We're like, maybe if I can control them, I can control me because I feel out of control. And so what I found was, at first with coaching, I am remotely intelligent enough to see solutions that would most likely help people. So in that, I'm like, do this, do this, do this. And I wanted people to align to my perspectives, my viewpoints, my beliefs. I became a far better, I would even go as far as to say extremely good coach, once I just said, where are you going? Why do you want to be there? Let me be a mirror to you, help you write your vision, your mission, and let me make sure that you're going there and support you in that journey. So now I'm handing you tools. You're saying, I want to build a house like this. I'm going to say, what are you going to do about it? And I'm certainly no longer plugging in anything of my beliefs. That's why, Chris, to the point, some of my coaching groups have, it's almost like the joke. I've got a Muslim, a Jew, and a Christian walk into a coaching group. And then what do? They walk out happy. It's because we listen and we love, and we're just saying we're on individual journeys, accepting that excitement. So to answer the question, I'd like to go there with it, because my biggest mistakes came from my own projection on others of me being out of control. And once I relinquished control personally and said, I'm going to be in flow in the river, the exact same thing happened in my coaching style. And it's night and day difference. I could have given somebody a tool and walked them down a path. Now they're doing it on their own, and they're just using me as a mirror. And it's way more beautiful. So what about you?
The same thing. I mean, it literally took the words out of my mouth when I think about coaching and thinking about that wanting to control the outcome. Like, okay, as long as I do X, Y, and Z, the outcome will be this, and then I will feel this. So my expectation tied to the control based on the performance of that individual doesn't do what I want them to do, or they decide to do something different and the outcome becomes differently. Then I feel like it's my fault because the expectation didn't come out to be where it was. And that again goes back to ego. So I think about how can we remove our ego from a lot of these situations and be able to sit there and be in that flow state, like you were saying, and kind of just, get rid of the ultimate situation, which we're talking about is fear. Like, I'm afraid that if it doesn't work out this way, then I will feel this, or I will be perceived as this. And I've had those situations. I've had early in my coaching career, when I would give them the advice, they wouldn't take the advice, and then it wouldn't be successful for them. I would take it personal as a tick to my ego. Like, what didn't I say right? What didn't I do right? And then as I've gotten older, I realized it's their journey. It's not my journey for them to have. It's not their time right now, maybe to learn that lesson. Maybe this time I planted seeds in order for them to maybe continue on their path. And then later on, they're going to reflect back and go, oh yeah, I remember when Chris taught me that, when Chris taught me that. So now my expectation is that I'm planting seeds. I may not particularly solve the situation for them at this particular moment if they're not ready. That's why I'm careful about who I choose as a coaching client. But ultimately, like, removing my ego from that situation and sitting there saying, okay, how can I be in service? Right? I'm not going to fix the situation, but how can I be in service for this individual? So perhaps maybe right now it changes, or down the road it changes, but still I'm contributing to that fact. So being able to remove my ego hasn't been always the easiest, because when we think about it, going back to the conditioning process that we experience from 0 to 5, what is it that we experience? How were our parents? How were our parents' parents in that situation? It all comes down the line. So it's up to us and you guys out there in video land and podcast land to sit there and become aware of that, the need for control. My question to you, Scott, is to think about, how can we get people to be more aware that they're control freaks?
It's a good question. I'm trying to, so one of the things, like, I'll give an example too. One of the places where I still, like, I totally am full of crap. And I think the first thing we're going to tell anybody always is awareness. Step into awareness. Awareness is step one of anything. So ask yourself some questions. Do I always have to drive? And that's the one I was going to lean into. I always have to drive. I have this illusion that no one can drive better. And if there's a bad driver, I'll do this superhero move and save everyone's life. And I never let that one go. We were just having a conversation in our house. Like, I was cooking something for the family, and my daughter's like, you can only cook like 3 things good. I'm like, 3 things. And so I listed like 50 things. And she's like, I guess you're good. And I'm like, and I was really mad because I felt out of control. Like, I control great meals in our house. And I got like literally offended, when she was just like, well, I don't eat those things. That's why I didn't really know.
Like, Dad, you make hot dogs, macaroni and cheese, and eggs.
No, I mean, I cook. I mean, I'm a really good cook. Like, but what it is that's what she wants. She wants those 3 things.
Oh, really?
That's what she eats. So when I cook like lavish meals or good meals, she doesn't want it. She doesn't want, halibut like sliced up with feta cheese, tomatoes and jalapenos. She's like, what is that? That's ridiculous. Wow. So my point is, like, I would not recognize that as control. I'd say, no, I'm just providing a good time for people. Oh, I just want to make sure people are safe. Start asking yourself the questions. Are you doing a lot of the things a lot of the time, like you have certain roles, and ask why you're doing that role? Is that something that, everyone's asking you to do, or do you always just take that role? Like when we used to do in graduate school, I was always like, I'm presenting. I don't give a shit who's in this group. I'm presenting. Because I was good at that, and I decided no one else could be as good as me. And if you want to be in my group, I'm presenting. And so it's just weird. There's a lot of little things where I'm like, I'm doing this, period. And
so was that ego? That was ego speaking then, right?
Yeah. And so I think there's a thing. Being honest with yourself, if you're the best, put it out there and say, here's what I can do here, whatever. I'd love to drive. I'm gonna maybe show them my progressive insurance that I haven't been in that many accidents that are my fault. I don't know. But realistically, yeah, I think ask questions. Where are you doing the same things over and over? Why are you in that role? Is it your choice, or is it everybody got elected you to do it? If that makes any sense. Because I see myself in a few places where I still want the illusion of control and certainty so that I can branch out elsewhere, so that I can live the life I'm preaching. There's a few things I still hold on to.
Mm-hmm.
Does that
Yeah.
make sense?
Yeah. Totally. Now, when I was thinking about that, I was thinking about the aspect of being able to, really kind of redefine what we're afraid of, and you touched on something there. When I think about it, is comparison, right? When we think we have to be in control, we have to be in control so that we can predict the outcome, so that we can be egoic and be confident about ourselves. So, and was part of that, we do that is by comparing ourselves. Oh, is that person a better driver? Is that person a better cook? Is that person a better speaker? Is that person a better coach? Is that person? And we predict, we look at that and we have a comparison syndrome. So, oh, as long as I do this, then I'm better than that person. And I think that's where it goes back to we're all the same. We're all more the same than we are different. And for me, thinking about that is really kind of identifying what the triggers are in my life where I see that. And I find that most of the triggers come from situations where people remind me of my mother, because my mother was so hard on me and so like, oh, you're a piece of shit, you're not very smart, you're stupid, and all these different things. So it's always been about validation for me. So operating out of that egoic standpoint, the predictability for certainty, safety, and control, that's what the great Sally Anderson, as we both know, coached me on way back when and said, Chris, you got to get out of this survivor mode. You're in survivor mode. You have to have everything planned out because you're afraid of not succeeding. You're afraid of not having that outcome. You're afraid of not having the finances in your bank account. And so for me, releasing that control, especially since leaving corporate back in November of 29, has been freaky, has been scary. I haven't made near as much money as I was making back in corporate. And some days I sit there and I think about it and I not compare myself against other people, but I compare myself against my former self. And that's where the negativity and the self-talk comes into play that doesn't bode well for myself. So I have to sit there and break that pattern. And that's one of the things I think for tonight is, for people that we can give advice to is how can we break them out of that pattern? Like, first of all, you talked about awareness. What things can we do to help people become more aware in their journey that maybe they need to get out of that ego mindset and, just fall into the place of just being present in the moments?
I mean, there's an insanely simple answer, and almost all answers are simple when you really get down to it. So the one thing that we don't like is the how is dictated by universe. So if we're plugged into this space from God, creator, universe, source, whatever you want to call it, that entity, that consciousness is what's impacting the how of this video game. If this video game, this world that we're living in is ultimately created by that, the layout's created. So all the interactions and whatever are guided by that creation. So how would we impact that potential how? And we talk about it all the time. You create a very solid why. So imagine this. I'm source and I'm creator, and I'm looking at all the fractals of me, my creation. Where are you going to apply the most effort, or where are you going to apply the most energy? Those in alignment. And so what do I mean by alignment? You come up with a great why. I've said mine a million times: to empower those who are those who have lost hope and or are struggling to find their brilliance and share it with the world. So if the universe and me are in alignment because I'm communicating and there's a conduit that's very clear, the universe is going to want to make me succeed, because if the universe is creating and I'm supporting creators and finding their brilliance, don't you think the universe is going to give me a lot of energy and attention? Yeah. So ask yourself an honest question. Does my why plug into, go read up on universal laws. Does my why plug in to most likely what source would want to do? I'm literally saying source gave everyone brilliance. I'm going to find those people who are struggling and make sure they share that. How can I fail? Do you see what I'm saying? The how's going to take care of itself. The irony is, even though I speak that, even though I know that, even though I watch it work, I still try to control shit. You know why? Back to your point. I get up here and I start thinking. And as soon as I step down into my heart and go, I don't know what I'm going to do, and then I just kind of do something, I'm like, oh, universe created that. You dictated that. And it was always the right answer. So what I would start doing is say, get out of your mind, into your heart, create an effective why, aka vision, a mission. And when you do that, the control will organically not be necessary. Control is a poor relationship with your mission or an unidentified why. That's what I got for you. What do you think?
Absolutely. No, I love that. I think that, in those situations for me, like thinking about that is like going back to the why, but going back to the intentions. And I think, one of the things why I think about in my journey is thinking about surrendering. And like when we think about the word surrender, I think you had mentioned it before. Surrendering sounds like it's weak. Like, oh, if I surrender, if I surrender the game, then I lose. And then lose has its own perspectives and outcomes and impacts on our egoic state and everything else. But I think surrendering is one of the greatest things that we can do, because when we surrender that need for control and we're just in those moments and we're not pontificating about the past, we're not playing Monday morning quarterback, we're not so worried about the future that we're not being present in these moments. And I found that the people I've interviewed and talked to over the years who are much older than us, they sit there and look back on their life, they reflect on their life, and we know the 5 regrets, but they reflect being the fact that they feel like they never really truly lived their life. They existed in their life, they were successful in their life, on paper and everything else, but truly being there in the moments with their kids. And I think about, from the aspect of me in control is when I think about Jackson, 5 years old, and I'm wanting to control his outcomes. I'm wanting to, like we were at karate yesterday, and I'm wanting to control him, like from across the room. I found myself getting angry. I'm like, come on, dude, hit the bag harder and do all these things. I'm like, Chris, all you're going to do is like fuck up your health, become mentally stressed out. When he comes back, when he's all done, you're going to be mean to him. You're going to be like, come on, dude, you could have done this. And there's, obviously points as a parent and as a guide, we have to be tougher on our kids to have them learn those lessons. But I sat there yesterday and I was just like, I asked myself this question: what would it feel like if I just relaxed right now and enjoyed watching my son have this experience? And if he's going to get it, he's going to get it on his own time. And I'm not going to be able to control these outcomes. And if I try to be too controlling, I'm going to push them away. And that's one of the things I've seen in so many different relationships, especially the parent, sibling or the parent child situation. The parents have been always trying to be so controlling. I want the kid to be in sports. I want the kid to do great in engineering. I want the kid to go follow my footsteps and become a doctor, when the kid doesn't want to do that. And then they push them away. And then both people are miserable. So I feel like it's really like getting back to that awareness is going back to our values. And that's something we've talked about a lot on the show. We've talked about in the coaching programs, is like, okay, what do I value most? What do I value most? Freedom, health, all these different things. If we get real with our values, go back to those. And then when we're in those situations where we feel like we might be in our ego and we might be controlling something because we're afraid of the outcome, we're afraid our kid's not going to graduate karate, we are afraid, our kid, whatever it might do. For me, it's about, just identifying my value is that I want to be remembered as a great parent. I want to remember, he's not going to remember what I tell him. He's going to remember how I make him feel. And so when I got into that place and I just relaxed, I was like, I looked at the other kids. I'm always focused on my kid, but I looked at the other kids and like the other kids are doing the same shit. So I'm like, it's natural, Chris. It's natural. The kids that have the yellow belts, they've been it longer. They're going to do better. He's going to get a yellow belt someday and he's going to be in the same situation. Just enjoy the moment, Chris. It's not about your ego. It's not about trying to protect him. He's going to learn the lessons he needs to learn when he needs to learn them. And you need to just shut the fuck up and be there for him when he falls down or when he's not successful, and be there as a dad and a supportive dad. So for me, it's about, being aware, but also identifying our values. And more importantly is really looking at the people that we surround ourselves with. Right? We're like the 5 people that we're around the most. So if we're around those people that are egoic and like, comparing themselves to everybody, and, oh, you got to do this and you got to do this and you got to be this and you got to, the Gary Vaynerchuks of the world telling people what they need to do as opposed to just being there as a support system. I think that's one of the ways that we can really help the viewers and the listeners, become more centered and kind of release some of that need for control and just be present in the moment.
I love it. And there's something that you said that's so on point that I love that you do, and you've always been organically good at this, is ask a lot of questions. So one of the best ways, I would say, not telling you what you need to do, but what I observe is a lot of questions for your kids. So you're in a place where you want to control. If you really, really think you need to lead them to a place, sometimes you might be like, all right, they're going clearly the wrong way. Hey, why would you go that way? What are some other options? Whatever. But when I find myself getting like triggered or wanting to say something somebody needs to do, I really try to back up and ask questions in like crucial moments. And if I do make a comment, I try to make sure that it's factual but based. Like, hey, if this happens, sometimes the counter of this is you'll get hurt. Is there another option? Like I might throw a fact in the question, and that will be with a friend. That will be in an argument on Facebook. That will be with a family member. I want to put something out there that if they really sit for a minute, they can look at fact, and then there'll be a question, but not, what you need to do. Like when we're coaching, I always love saying that it doesn't matter. They could love you and you could say the greatest thing. The minute I go, what you need to do, your whole body goes
defensiveness. You need to what? Oops.
Yeah, it's like it just feels nauseating. And so the best thing that we can always do as a lead, somebody who's leader, is just be the change, be where we're at. We always say like, why do you do all this shit? This world sucks. Look at all these bad people. All right, well, just be what you're saying you want to see. This really nice girl that I'm friends with on Facebook that was following Golov now, and she's at fibromyalgia, doesn't get out of the house a lot. Beautiful girl, and she's got all this stuff going on. And I was just like falling in love with listening to some of the things she's like, when I get out and when I do get out, some of the things she does, like how she treats people at restaurants. She's like, it's so sad for me, not that I don't get to run around and play in the world. It's I don't get to be the person in the world that's making a difference by showing up. She's like, I tip, I converse. If somebody looks down, I talk to them. And she's going through all the things that she's missing. And all she wants to do is be the change. And I'm like, that's so beautiful. And even in saying it, she's inspiring other people to do it. So by proxy, it's being done. And I'm like, that's the game right there. Be the player. Don't be the victim. Don't be the savior. Play the game the best you can do. And people see you do it and they'll want to be part of it. Our kids, our friends, our cohorts, our Facebook buddies. Many of them, many don't want anything to do with what we're saying. But
They're not ready yet. It's not their journey, but something we've been talking about. We haven't mentioned this word yet, and I was curious to see if it was going to come up. What do you think trust has to do with control?
Oh, it's big. I mean, to your point of, think of, talking about like 0 to 2 and then in 0 to 5. If you don't trust that you're safe and you don't trust your mom, you love your mom and not trust her. Not even in a bad way. There might be places you trust. If you don't trust, then you're going to cling to control in a hurry.
Yeah.
In a hurry. I'll go vulnerable, transparent. I was saying to Kim, like we were going through some little, growing pain stuff, like within relationships where, again, we've been 20 something years, but you have waves of stuff. She's like, you always ask me like 50 times. You always ask me, you'll say, did you shut the garage? And she'll say, yes. And I go, are you sure? And she's like, yes. And then she gets real mad at me. And then, so we kind of went through why. And I said, a lot of times you answer me very quickly. And I know that you didn't totally even hear the question. And sometimes if I go out and the garage was open and my bike gets stolen, I'm going to be livid. So I'm going to ask twice, not because I want to do what? I want to control. I want to make sure my bike doesn't get stolen. So there's a clear interaction there. Like there's no doubt. And I see that in myself when things are going crazy. Okay, is the garage door shut? I'm leaving. Is the back door open? She says, I don't think so. I'm like, can you tell me? And I'm not being mean. I want to feel that control because of what? I don't fully trust everything around me. Mm-hmm. And so I'm giving you some little micro examples that we see play out in the macro. I don't trust this political party. I don't do this. So what do? We create these illusions of control. So what do you think about that? Because it's funny you asked that because we've been going through little things where we can do internal work to better our relationship.
Sure.
And once we address those issues, guess what happens? Everything gets better. Like we remove some place of distrust, illusion of control. And, it's stuff that we should all be working on.
Yes. Yeah. I think it's magnificent. I was thinking about trust and when you were talking, I was like, that's a perfect example. And thank you for sharing that. I think, number one, we got to trust ourselves. We got to trust ourselves that no matter what's going to happen, we're going to be okay. And the word that comes to my mind is adaptability. And the other one that comes to my mind is flexibility. Like, am I going to be adaptable to something? If I have a certain expectation, it's good to have expectations to a certain extent. You want to have expectations, you build a plan around those expectations, you execute on the goals. And if it doesn't work, can I be adaptable? Will I be flexible to the outcomes and be able to pivot and learn from those situations and be able to take that information and move it on in my life and potentially help other people? Yes or no? Absolutely. I can totally do that. So when I think about that, and I think about some of the people who have had control issues and have been quote unquote control freaks, their adaptability and their flexibility is almost non-existent because they're so rigid in the situations they have to be, because they have to be in control. Like you said, to that point, did I grow up in an environment where I trusted, where I was able to trust myself? Maybe I made a couple of mistakes and people, judged me and everything. So now my fear is that I'm going to be judged as a failure. I'm going to be judged based on my mistakes. But if I look back on my life, and I just asked this question of somebody the other day who was really struggling, I said, when you look back on your life, I said, when did you learn the most? When you made mistakes and you failed, or when everything was easy and good? And they thought about it for a minute, gave me a dirty look, and they said, Well, I guess when things were bad. And I said, okay, what happened when those things didn't turn out the way you expected, the way you wanted? Did you trust yourself that you knew you were going to be able to handle those situations? Well, no, but now I kind of do. And I said, why? Looking back on that, were you able to pivot? Were you able to be flexible? Yes. Okay. So what would it look like if you started releasing some of that control in the future and knew that if something happened that you were going to be able to be adaptable, you're going to be able to have that flexibility to say, okay, it didn't go this way, so what way is it supposed to go? And am I going to allow myself to go through that experience so that I can look back in 5 years and be able to say, wow, I'm glad I actually went through that, because now it served me and it served people in my life that I love. So I think about that, like trusting myself. Will I be adaptable to those situations? Or is it that rigidness, that fear that if I don't do it, then I'm going to be judged less than, or if I'm going to take it like totally personal? So for me, it's really about like releasing that, but also trusting that the universe is doing what it needs to do for the situations where I need to learn. And I think we have a great example with the person that we were going to be interviewing on the show this week. Unfortunately, had something going on. Adaptability. He wasn't feeling well, went to the doctor and was like, holy shit, I got something going on inside of me. The thing that changes everything is your attitude, your perspective about, okay, I got something going on. I'm not willing to necessarily say I'm going to claim this diagnosis. However, I'm going to claim the fact that I'm going to get through this and I'm going to bounce back and I'm going to be great. And I think that's most important, really, is what our attitude's going to be if something does go wrong. Are we going to be in a negative situation? Are we going to spiral? Or are we going to sit there and say, okay, wow, that's really interesting. What can I do to pivot from this? What do you think?
So, I always do when we have a guest, I do that point where I'm like, stop, this is what you got to listen to. As I'm listening to you speak it out, if there's anything to walk away with from this show, is that's really all of it, because everything else is minutia. It doesn't matter. It's trusting yourself, because here's the deal. We started the conversation talking about attachment. I was talking about the examples with Buddhism and other spiritualities, and I love the idea of non-attachment and observe. That's great and all. So the awareness to be the observer, not attached, but then the key factor, the missing piece, the gold, the magic, that's trust. So you nailed it. If anyone is listening and wants to write down something right now, it's trust, because that's it.
Yeah.
So I think at this point, if I'm thinking release and control, I really want to sit in that space. Do I trust myself? Do I trust myself? And then extend, what do I always say? Extend the sense of self. Do I trust myself? So do I trust this vessel? Do I trust this spirit? Do I trust the extension of spirit, which includes source and everything that has been created? So if I trust in this universe, one verse, this one creation, if I trust in that, then I know I'm going to be okay if I don't attach, because attaching is what makes me drown. So I think that's it. I think we can all just leave and go have a beer on this Friday night. I think everybody's going to be okay. You just got to trust. Just listen to Chris. Trust. Don't attach. I mean, it's really nothing else to say. We can keep going.
It is.
I'm just teasing.
No, the other aspect of the conversation I wanted to bring up today is thinking about what's going on in the world around us, and thinking about, the sense of divisiveness, the sense of, I was just talking to my buddy Heath over in Massachusetts today, and he's a former police officer. He's the vice co-chair for the mayoral board in his town. And so he's involved in politics. He's seeing what's going on. I talked to him. I said, so, with the Uvalde shooting, I said, what do you see? I said, the footage was just released the other day where you see the officers in the hallway. You see the one fucker get hand sanitizer, which I would like to pour hand sanitizer down his throat while these kids are getting shot and everything. They actually said, I don't know if you saw it. Did you see that? And they said they had to edit out the audio of the kids screaming and crying. And I said, what is your perspective about that? And he goes, I said, being an ex-police officer, I said, why did that happen? And he said, purely, it was poor training. It was absolutely poor training. He talked about how he was actually an active shooter trainer. And he says, what we did is we actually had mock drills. We had clay bullets. We had to wear bulletproof vests. We had to wear, what's that game you play with the paintball? You had to wear a paintball mask, had to wear a cup, but they did full on shooting situations where they go into schools. They would use a school during summertime. And so he talked about it. He goes, it's poor training and everything else. But he was talking about how mad it made him. And I said, it's totally true. I said, because everything out in the media right now, we're getting mad because we're not able to control what the other person's thinking. I even joked around. We talked about the new telescope, I guess, that's out there. I can't remember the name of it. Yeah. And we were talking about all that different stuff. And like the flat earthers, that was the other thing we were joking around about. And, seeing that. But the point that he made, which I thought was really good, considering how angry he was, he goes, we're not going to change anybody else's mind. The thing that we need to do is we need to release control over the fact that other people are going to have difference of opinions. And what can we do to try to meet in the middle? and he was talking about, the parades in his town are very left oriented. And he goes, I went to a couple of towns over, and there was like a Republican float, then there was a Democrat float, and everybody's cheering for everybody. And I said, what do you think we can do as a society to release some of that control that, we want other people to think like us, but they won't. And I know that you publicly said you've had challenges here. I've had challenges with my own situation here with my wife. She's very much like, those fuckers need to die. I don't care what they think. I don't care where they're at the 90% of their time. If they believe in this, they're not good. And so what are your recommendations for us to kind of like sit there and take a step back? Because I know you've been doing a really good job on that. What are some situations you think that we can do to release that control of that expectation of other people trying to be like us? I guess.
Yeah, perfect.
That makes sense.
No, it's total sense. And you've even watching me do it through social media, because I really stepped away from making comments on spaces that there's just no, all we're doing is entrenching a person further and further in their thoughts by giving them an opposite point of view without, not even with great facts, because people aren't listening to facts. So you're wasting your time. Now, here's what I've done. And this is actually a beautiful question, because I've been trying to like frame it in my own mind. I'm not going to try to change other people. I'm going to lead by example. I will be cautious of how I use my voice and when I use my voice. And here's how I make a decision whether to use my voice or not. The minute I see something from a person who has other people who are following them that could hurt other people. Yeah. So a comment, saying, God hates transgenders. If I see that and I see people following, I'm going to go in and I'm going to make a lot of comments, and I'm going to attack people with love. But I'm going to say, when somebody kills themselves, this is on you. So if you're telling me that you say that you're following Jesus, this is not what Jesus would do. So that's bullshit. So what I do is I will listen. I will find common ground until somebody's going to get hurt. And so that's where I'm at. So that's really it, is I'm going to spend more time sharpening, my tools, being the best Scott possible, so people can look at me and say, hey, he's walking the walk. And you saw it. You're seeing people say it in the thread. People going, I was expecting just something different, and this has all changed. And there's certain people you'll see, I'm surprised you didn't say more. Just know I know that person, and I know when to speak and when not to speak. Do I have a chance of getting them to think more, or is this going to entrench them? So sometimes you might be like, I'm surprised you didn't say something on that. It's me starting to be even more in tune with source and knowing when and where to shut up. In fact, source even took my voice away for a few days because maybe I was saying too much and said, get back into your heart. And I'm like, all right. And so I think it's all with great intention. Source is us, and I'm listening. And I think
what has that done for your stress level?
Very, very interesting too, because it really goes down. Like I'll get, so you know what stress is. I mean, it's a high level of beta. So I'll get into high beta and I'll be in that space, and then I'll intentionally put myself through meditation and alpha, theta. I'm still able to sleep, whatever. So stress reduction is down. I intentionally accept the stress for moments where I want to be in a beta state to articulate what I'm saying. Maybe there's a better way. Maybe I should be in an alpha state and almost, it's reduced it. I'm just thinking out loud. It's reduced it. I mean, man, there's a lot going on. You saw some of these posts that I'm talking about.
I saw
It's
like, where did you come from? What part of the world did you come from? And that you're right. You're not going to change batshit crazy. You're not going to change that. But I think it's a great point to lead with love and to be able to ask those probing questions as opposed to attacking. Because like we said before, as soon as I sit there and say you should or you're not, then what's that person going to do? They're going to go into that defensive mode. I have to protect myself. And if we can reduce that and get to a place where we can actually have communication, and actually be able to, ask them those questions and be able to raise those awarenesses, then we take the monkey off our back and we put it on their back, and we get to walk away fat and happy. And they're the ones that are sitting there going, shit, what did he just make me think about?
Yeah. And I love, like, when you use certain words where people aren't really understanding the words. I will just say this comment or comments like these are ignorant. And the reason being is because, and I'll explain. So I'm not attaching it to the person saying you're an idiot. I'm saying comments like these are ignorant. That means you're ignoring additional facts and laying things out there that are absolute bullshit. So in doing that, if you read it, sometimes people are like answering it wrong. Like they're getting offended and going, you're telling me I'm this. I go, never said that. And then the most contradictory person to my belief system. If you look at the end of that conversation, it was very interesting. I was reading her upbringing back. I could totally see how she's where she at. She
Yeah.
said, "We are never going to get to a point to agree." And I said, "I respect your values. Thanks for realizing that." And I just said, "I hope you do amazing in life. Be well." And that was literally the last ending. And it was really coming from that space. And we both were like, yeah, you're not the one that either of us are going to change. Like neither was is going nowhere. So
Right.
to this point, there was love there. Like I'm looking at this person thinking, you are a massive part of the problem in this world, but she still recognized love. And I knew that she wasn't doing it with actual animosity like many. And I was like, this is how the discourse should go right here. Go
Yeah.
look at the end. It was, I actually kind of wanted to give her a hug, and I
Yeah.
can't stand her as far as belief system, but I have nothing against her. I'm
Right.
looking at what she's done. I'm like, totally see how you got there.
Yep.
So
And I think that's the important thing is love. And that's something that I would not have subscribed to much, 5-10 years before. I'd be like, fuck, what does love have
me
to do with
too,
it? I don't give a
man.
shit about love. It's all about plan A, B, C, D, like predictability, everything
Yeah.
else. But I think that to your point, I think that's true because like watching that video of Uvalde and seeing the guy put the hand sanitizer, I literally like I just said before, I want to pour hand sanitizer down his throat. But at the same time, thinking about what you have said and what some of my other mentors have said, like, can you send that person love? Can you imagine what that person's feeling and thinking right now that
Oh
they
my
were not
God.
able to go in there and save those kids?
Yeah.
That guy is beating himself up worse than you could ever physically beat him up. He would probably appreciate you kicking his ass because his own thoughts and his fear of even going outside because all these parents are potentially, he's getting it. He's getting it up the ass and backwards and forwards. Can I send him love instead of like being so mad at him for not acting? What would I do in that situation? If somebody was in there and thinking, holy shit, if I go in there, I might get killed. I might not go home and see my kids tonight. Maybe I didn't have the greatest training. If I could send him love, then immediately I just feel that sense of release, instead of being so mad and so angry and so wanting to put harm on him. God source universe doesn't want me to be that type of soul. He wants me to go love now.
Yep. Amen. Amen.
Yeah.
It's
But
cool. To the point we always talk about autopilot.
yeah,
I literally think not just the poor training creates a better autopilot because then you walk in, your autopilot is, a well-trained police officer. I literally think much more than that. Everybody has a different fear response, and the guy's literally crapping his pants. And what have we been doing? This, okay, am I like? It actually doesn't sound like that crazy, It
yeah.
really doesn't. It sucks, and I want to say there's no way I would do that, and I doubt I would. But shit, crazier things have happened.
Mhm.
You asked the question this week. Talk about your mistakes more than what you learned from them. Stop denying them. Could have been any of us. I don't. I can doubt it, and it doesn't make sense to me. I'm just glad I didn't have to be there. Actually, I'm not. I wish I was there. Could have done something, but I don't. It sucks. It
Mm.
just sucks.
Yeah, it's a horrible situation. But I think the last thing I want to talk about, speaking about love, is I think, going back to that trust component, which I think is important, is, thinking about the conversations that I've had over the last 2 years in asking people like, do you love yourself? Yes or no? And being on these Zoom calls with them and having them go, and seeing people struggle with the fact of, do you love yourself? Yes or no? If you don't love yourself, then what is the probability that you're going to need to be in control because you're so afraid that you don't even love yourself, that you need the validation and the acceptance from so many other people that you're not even getting from yourself? So I think for tonight, letting people know that you got to love yourself, ladies and gentlemen. You got to take care of yourself. People are stressed out because they don't get sleep. They're stressed out because they're not eating properly. They're stressed out because they're not exercising. They're stressed out because they're not hydrating. They're stressed out because they're watching the news. They're stressed out because they're hanging out with people who think like them. And you get the group think, and they're egging everybody on. Oh, you got to do this. You got to do this. You got to do this. And there's just feeling like this amount of pressure that, the only thing that I have is certainty. If I can predict certainty, then I'm going to be comfortable and then I'm going to be okay. So I think the self-love aspect of it is massive. What do you think?
My head. You don't even have to ask, of course.
Go love now, right behind you, baby.
Self-love, man. I mean, and then extend the sense of self. Love myself enough as an individual to find my brilliance and share it with the world, and then learn to love the world that I'm sharing that brilliance with, even including that woman that. And I'm being very honest with you. Like, I'm mad at her because we went awry. And there's people who are looking out there for all the answers when they're all inside. So I'm mad, but I'm not mad at her. I'm mad at the system. I'm mad at the extended sense of self. And I want to heal that. And how can I heal that? I'm part of self. So I heal me. So I love her. I'm irritated with her, but I'm really just irritated with what's going on.
Yeah.
And that's it. And once you come down a notch and you get to that space and you learn to not emotionally attach to every single incident, the world becomes a better place. And I'm not saying it's easy, because I fail often, but I will say it's worth it.
Yeah,
that's all I can give you.
Yep. I think it's a beautiful way to end the show, Mr. Scott Goyette. Beautiful conversation about letting control. Any final thoughts you can think of to summarize? I'm like, what the fuck word is it? Summarize what it is we've been talking about, because you always do such a great job of wrapping things up.
Well, actually, surmise would be a shortened version of summarize, so it would actually be a summarization. You could just say surmise. I'm going to go with it.
Okay, go.
Here's my surmise. my surmise of today's show is Chris nailed it. Okay, we started the show. We talked about not attaching. So be the observer of this existence. All these things we want to attach to. Remember something that we didn't even get into. I want you to think about this now. When you go to Fox News, CNN, MSNBC, whichever one you think is the devil, whatever you're seeing, you see them saying something that triggers the hell out of you. Remember, those words are literally being put into your mind to trigger you. So you get out of that state of wanting to surrender and you try to control something you can't. So it's literally created so that you lose control. Control, in actuality, comes through surrender. Surrender is going back into the self. So what I would do is I would do what Chris said. Trust that you are enough. Love yourself enough to know that you can do the things you want to do in this world, and you can find your brilliance and share it with all. And you can do that. And you can do that starting right now. And I would go love now. Yeah.
Yeah, you can go do that. Absolutely.
This is my voice.
It was a beautiful summarization. I appreciate it. And ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, thank you guys for being here, whether you're live or on the replay. Put those comments in there. Put the questions in there. We'll be able to answer those for you. We appreciate you guys being here. If you're not part of the family on the Facebook community, go to www.theunfilteredexperience.com, theunfilteredexperience.com. Go there, join the Facebook community. Let us know what you want to see. Let us know potentially any guests you've heard on other podcasts that you think would be great on this particular podcast. We would love to have those introductions, and any types of topics that are bugging you right now, the challenges that you have going on in your life. You literally have two amazing coaches here that come here every single week who are looking to answer your questions. So if you have something that's going on, something that's challenging you, reach out to us privately, whether you know Scott, whether you know myself, whether you know both of us. Reach out to us, join the Facebook community, because we're all about impact. We're all about, like we said at the top of the show, like help heal humanity. We're all about helping heal humanity together, walking this path together, learning and growing from one another, seeing the differences, seeing the what the fuck is the opposite from differences? The
similarities.
The similarities. I couldn't think of the word. The similarities.
We're getting older, Chris. We're getting older.
Yeah, the similarities. Let's look for the similarities and everything. And please take to heart the stuff that we said here in today's podcast. Let us know in the comments. Let us know in the private message. Let us know in the Facebook community what it is that impacted you the most. We appreciate you. We love you guys. We're going to see you every Friday, 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We love you guys. Go out there, be brilliant. And we'll see you here next time on The Unfiltered Experience.